All right, welcome to this episode of First Home Hustle. I'm Kim McCarty.
I'm Dave Stahl.
I'm real excited today. We have some special guests with us. So, as you know, we want to start introducing you guys to different people around the country and people that are in the business and can help us find agents that can help our buyers in other places in the country. So, today we have Christy Elliott, who is a lender, and then one of her favorite referral partners as an agent, Robert Akerley, and they serve North Georgia area. Is that correct? I got it right?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you so much for having us. We're happy to be here with you guys.
awesome. We're excited to have you. All right, so we're going to dive in. I'm going to let Dave kind of start with you, Christy, about the loan market, what you guys are seeing in your area as far as first-time home buyers is what we're really going to focus on today. But if you want to talk a little bit more broad, we can as well. So, Dave, take it away.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good intro. We're just, obviously we know what's going on in our market and we're trying to find out what's going on in other markets. So kind of give us some insight as to what you're seeing in your market, Christy.
Yeah, in our area, I say everything is still really growing. Prices are really strong. It's hard for first time buyers to get started and get a hold of something. We've got higher prices and mostly around our area, but there's a little bit, if you spread out, go a little bit farther into the country, you can find some lower price things, and we've got people still needing down payment assistance. And then even up into the mountains, we've got a big tourist area. So we have a lot of investment properties and people buying investments.
Okay, awesome.
That sounds very familiar.
It sounds familiar, except for we don't have mountains. We don't have mountains here. Okay, so when you say down payment assistance, we actually just did an episode on down payment assistance. Is your down payment assistance specific to certain areas, or is it more just qualifications of those buyers?
Right. We have a program, Dave and I, through our company that would apply to anyone. It doesn't even have to be a first time home buyer.
Okay.
And then, of course, in Georgia, we have the Georgia Dream that is available for a very limited amount of buyers that fit into a very small wedge of, income and credit scores and things like that. We have to kind of, finagle to fit someone to fit that. But a little bit of both.
Okay, awesome. So, question then for Robert. Robert, when you are helping first-time home buyers, are you seeing multiple offers in your market, and are you able to kind of guide them through that? And with the help of Christy as a partner, the two of you working together to try to understand and help them understand the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tricky. It's always tricky, no matter what type of market it is when you're working on the first time home buyer, limited funds, trying to make an offer that's super aggressive, that's going to stand out amongst the rest. Unfortunately, first time home buyers, the hot price point all the time because a lot of investors are trying to get in that price point as well. So with the help of Chris, we come up with strategic ways to be able to make our offer stand out a little bit more, communication that we have as professionals, and really stand out the difference of what other agents are bringing for their buyers, and even for their sellers as well.
So give me an example of something that would make you guys stand out with your offer.
Every single time I send an offer out, Chris is going to be CC'd on there. My TC is going to be CC'd on there. Just letting that agent know that we have 100% communication. Also, we do let the listing agent know that the buyer is well qualified. It's not like we just met them yesterday. We built
Right.
a relationship. We know exactly where they're at. We know their motivation. So when we write an offer, it's a very strong offer versus across. I'm licensed in California, licensed in Texas as well. It's the same thing's going on over there where offers are falling out because the agent hasn't qualified that right buyer. So
Right.
although our offer may not stand out on paper, we're vouching our professionalism to get that job done.
Right. All right. So let me ask you this, Robert. Is what's the first time home buyer price point usually for you in your market there?
I'm a little bit different than where Chrissy's at. Just my local area, I try to hyper focus within about 5 mile radius of my office. So I'm very hyper focused on my market.
Mhm.
But we're anywhere from 300 to 500,
Okay.
and we get a lot of transplants, such as myself from California, New York. Different money where our first time home buyers maybe 700,000. So
Right.
we say that because it's very different across the board. We're situated right on a lake, so the closer you are to the lake, the more money it's going to be.
Okay. Okay. And do you have a lot of new construction in your area?
We have a fair amount. There's a lot of land, so there's construction loans that are being bought out. People are buying land and kind of, going that route. So for a first-time home buyer, it's great. It's more of the patience game that, hey, you're gonna have a home, just not gonna be able to move in 30 days.
Right, right. Okay. And how is that with I think Dave can talk to Christy more about this, but how do you compete with those lenders for the new home construction, Christy?
That is one of the things that I think our company is able to do pretty well. I'm a branch manager at my branch, and we are aware of needing to cut some corners and reduce our fees, and then even broker the deal and get as tight as we can on our pricing. And if you can structure the deal correctly and find the best rate. Then it's a real incentive for the client, but also, just the fact that you have control over the situation if you're not using their lender, where you're not going to have any communication, you're not going to have any control over the process. We can actually provide a lot of benefit for someone in that neighborhood type situation.
Okay.
Now, do you have a lot of the bigger national home builders in your area, or is it smaller?
There's a good bit of bigger ones, and then I would say a fair amount of small ones as well.
Okay, because I know myself, and we've talked about this a lot, is I think I get looked at and get utilized a lot as a valuable resource, so to speak, where I do a lot of comparing and contrasting of that offer that the builders lenders got on the table based upon it being that in-house lender versus what's available outside of that. And I find it really valuable to be that resource and to give an honest assessment as to what deals the best. And sometimes it's not mine. And I find that with a lot of the national home builders, it is a lot harder unless it's a product that they don't have available.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with several buyers in a big neighborhood situation where, the builder even has an in-house mortgage company of their own, but they still need a product that's not available in that, limited mortgage availability that the builder has.
Right,
Okay.
right. So from a contract standpoint, Robert, do you guys what's when you're putting in an offer on like a resale, what are the normal and customary things that your buyer would pay for at closing versus what the seller is normally pays for?
Seller's paying the commission, and that's about it. So everything else is
That's
up to the
okay.
buyer.
So our market's a little different in that in most of Texas, normal market, it's normally customary for the seller to pay for that title policy. So you guys don't have that?
It's all based on the buyer. Now the buyer can write the offer, have sell their closing costs. So we're going to analyze each property and what they're writing at and what their loan structure is like to be able to modify the offer to get the offer accepted. But yeah, when I'm representing a buyer, I'm going to eat that listing agent alive, and I can find out where the weak points are and get my seller to come out of pocket very little. So if we can keep that closing cost credit to, if they're conventional, to be able to go up to 3%, whatever we need to do to be able to buy down the rate, do a 2-1 buy down, be able to get the closing costs covered, and still be able to make the offer, stand out without it going over appraised value because we have limited funds. So as far as the contract itself, it's mostly the buyer's responsibility to pick up the closing costs outside of the commission.
Okay. So is that in a competitive market or is that in a standard market for you guys?
It's always a competitive market for me, regardless of what's going on. It's either a listed competitive market or a buyer competitive market. So I'm going to float in between and kind of go after what's the lowest hanging fruit, always, and be able to serve the people that need the most help. But I love working with first time home buyers. In fact, Chrissy and I just closed on one 2 days ago. Still pending getting everything done. Chrissy knows what I'm talking about with
I
this one, but
know.
it's such an awarding feeling versus talking to investors on property number 50,
Right.
and you're
That's
just
right.
just someone else to them. But first time home buyers, the amount of texts I get the flowers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what makes me feel good about what I do every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very interesting that your buyer is really borne all the expense, less anything that you can negotiate for the seller to pay. Because in our market, it's normal and customary for that seller to pick up the title policy. And when we're talking about interested party contributions, like what the seller pays, what have you, that title policy, because it's part of the contract as to who it's paid by, if it's paid by the seller, it's not part of that 3 or 6% seller contribution, so it's outside of that. So that's really interesting that your market is completely different in that
Yeah.
aspect, because that, on a $300,000 house, at least in our market, that's $1,800 in title policy that, that's in limbo. At least for you, I would guess that's probably similar. Is that right? The title policies are about that much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very similar. And when we write it up, I mean, depending on what attorney we're using, different things, we might be able to find fees are a little bit less using the right appropriate people for that buyer, based on location or that home price. But yeah, I mean, in California, where I started my real estate career, everything over there was seller pay for home warranty. When I
Yeah.
came to Georgia, it's like that's unheard of out here. But I
Oh,
still think
Right.
that's important for my buyers to have that, and I also think it's important for the sellers to offer that to leave off the liability off their plate moving forward. So
absolutely.
it's very interesting state by state. Not one realtor fits the ball, not one lender fits the ball of what everyone's looking for. So it's super important to do your due diligence as a buyer and a seller when finding that right partner.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because we're starting to see in our market, depending on the price point, if the home has sat on the market, gosh, people now think it's shop worn if it's sitting on the market 20 days, right? So if it's on the market 20 days, then we're going in and asking for $10,000 in closing cost assistance for those buyers, in order to help offset either a rate buy down or some of those closing costs. And we're having the seller pay the title policy. So in our market, depending on the price and of course, depending on great real estate, then we might actually have some negotiation power for some of our first time home buyers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to utilize that and structure the deal to be in your client's favors is always when best realtors are standing apart than the others. A lot of
Absolutely.
other agents are just order takers, and want to write an offer, put it together, and they wonder why their offers never stick. Well, there's a reason for that typically. So
Yeah.
having a good realtor behind a first time home buyer is very important. I think that a lot of first time home buyers think they're intruding on a busy, experienced realtor because we're selling multi-million-dollar homes all the time when the reality is, I'd rather sell 10 first time home buyers a property this month than one multi-million-dollar home just because, like I said earlier, the value that I bring to them, and they need it more than anything else. That's our future with real estate in 10, 15 years when they turn around and they are the experienced seller in 5 years or 10 years.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I know that Dave and I are passionate about helping first time home buyers. You know, we talk about on our episodes, just the wealth that real estate can bring people and the need to quit renting and the need to jump into real estate. We also have talked about the interest rates and we've talked about how although those interest rates are higher than they were years before, that's a very normal rate and it's a very healthy rate and it's still a great rate to buy a house. And that if you had waited for the rates to come down, I think we said in the 70s, you had this quote. What was it?
It
That
was, and Christy, you may have seen this. There's a chart, and I can't remember what website it was on. From 1971, rates were about seven and a quarter, seven and three eighths, and and a lot of people today are like, I'm going to wait for rates to come back down before I buy. If you were to, in 1971, if you would have waited for rates to come back down before you bought, you would have waited until August of 1993 when rates came back down to where they were that same exact moment in time in 1971. So I think, and we say it a lot, is don't focus so much on the interest rate
yeah,
as you need to focus on the affordability factor,
yes,
because if you don't think that you can afford to buy a house today, you're certainly not going to be able to afford to rent tomorrow.
right.
Right. Well, and the people that wait, they sit on the sidelines and then eventually they just have to give up and buy, and they know at that moment that they've missed out on gaining that equity, and they've watched rates go up and prices go up.
Yeah.
So you really just need to buy when the time is right to buy for you, because you're buying an asset that grows in value. And over time, I mean, there's such a huge success rate over that. I mean, you almost can't go a 10-year period where people didn't grow enormous wealth from owning real estate. So, I mean, if you're not buying, you're missing out. And renting is just throwing thousands and thousands of dollars away. And you don't think about it on the monthly payment, but that if you start multiplying that by a year at a time, it's a
Yeah.
big chunk of money that you're just throwing out the window.
Yes, and we've done some charts on exactly how much money if you just did an average appreciation of 3 to 5%. I mean, minimal appreciation and where your equity is versus what you would have paid out in a rent situation, and you have nothing to show for it in the end. So, yeah. So, Robert, one question for you. Where do you see your market going right now for first-time home buyers or just in general? Are your homes sitting on the market a little bit longer like we're seeing here in Texas? Where are you guys?
I mean, considering the rates are not really budging much, I mean, they had a little bit dip in the beginning of the year. But considering where we are at last year and the year before that, I think we're doing very, very, very well. Our days
Mhm.
on market are falling in my county at six
Oh,
days on market with an average
Wow.
price point of 625,000. So we're not talking about small little homes, but there's a lot of other things that go in just the house. There's the property taxes, insurance, all the other things, and as you mentioned, when we're talking to first time home buyers, it's not just the affordability. Yes, we want you to afford it. But what about when your kids go to college and that's 50,000? Where are you going to come up with that money?
right,
What
right.
happens when you want to put a pool in? How are you going to pay for that? So that's not just affordability, but it's your piggy bank moving forward to not only catapult you into do better things, but also allow you to buy more property. But it starts with the first one, and I think that's where people are missing out. So I explain that all the time, just like when I meet with a seller, I meet with a buyer to explain all that, find out what their motivation is, and then also kind of give them some knowledge on how this can benefit them down the road and have them be excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what Dave and I do. Yeah, explaining to buyers. I always tell my first-time home buyers, listen, I want you to think about holding this property when you're ready to sell it. Let's think about holding it as your first investment and your first portfolio piece. And then what could we do with that? And, Dave and I've talked a lot about what real estate does is it forces people to have a savings account that they are automatically every month just putting money into a savings account. And we know that Americans will not save unless they are kind of forced to. And that's what a mortgage really kind of does for people is and the appreciation and natural equity that you get. We talked last week about how when we do that and when you have that natural savings account that you're creating when your kids are ready to go to college, if you don't have the $50,000, well, then you tap into the equity of your home. Well, there's different things that you can do. So 100% on the same page with you guys as far as how we educate our buyers and even our sellers when it's time to sell that property. Let's look at both sides of it. Should we rent it? Should we sell it? Do we need all the cash? How can we make this work for you for the best future? Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And you got
great.
tax-free money when you pull out the money out to buy your next property. So
Exactly.
what about that huge savings? Capital gains at 37%,
Yep.
not on this one. So you're pulling out free money and it's tax-free. They don't understand the benefits of that. And the same thing, when I go to a listing appointment, I was like, wait a minute, why are we selling? You only
Right.
buy real estate in America. We don't sell it. Let me find out why you're thinking about selling real estate here. So yeah, and if I can recommend to rent the property, even though I'm not going to make the commission, it's going to be better for them,
Yep.
100%, because that's American dream right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions, Dave?
I don't have anything else. I
Do you
mean,
guys have
it's
any questions for us?
So, I mean, I'm licensed in Texas. I lived up in Georgetown, above Austin, up there.
Yeah.
So familiar with the area, kind of familiar with that real estate and where it was at. It was always hard because of higher property taxes, right? So Texas got no income tax, higher property tax, but it all levels out.
Right.
What are you guys seeing over the last 12 months to even last 6 months as far as what your real estate market is projecting and where you guys are going?
Yeah. So I would say we are starting to see some properties that are sitting on the market a little bit longer, but our prices are not really coming down. So they may sit longer. And I think it's interesting when they are sitting longer, some of them are still good, getting full price, but maybe they're giving some concessions on the back end to those buyers. So we are starting to see a little bit of that. But man, if there is a property that is in a neighborhood that everyone wants to be in, that we're waiting for that house to come on the market, it's still getting multiple offers. So we are seeing that still. I know that when we put properties on the market, we are in a situation where, man, you got to be staged really well. You got to have great photos. You got to have everything. Even when we weren't in that market and we were able to just put a sign in the yard and it would sell, I still was forcing the sellers to just do and put their best foot forward with staging and getting it ready because I knew they would net even more money when it came down to multiple offers and being able to get them the most. So I think we're seeing it stabilize a little bit. I don't think we're seeing it slide backwards. Would you agree?
I think the market that we're in is very normal, and what
Yeah.
I mean by very normal is that if you have an older house that you've completely renovated, it's getting snapped up.
Yeah.
If you've got an older house that you're just like, ah, let's put it on the market and, at this price and see if we can sell it, then maybe you're that seller who has to, to give some concessions to be able to sell your property.
Right.
I think that's very normal,
Yeah.
and that it's great for first time home buyers that to know that there are different levels that you can go look at. And, maybe there's, you got to put some sweat equity into a property, but if you're wanting something that's brand new, you're going to have to compete.
Yeah. For sure. For
And
sure.
I think that's probably, is that the same in your market?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that's
Yeah.
about right. So, even the price points, I would say our average price point, like the 5 to 600, is just a super super hot commodity right now. But homes at like 750 to a million, we're seeing them sold in about 21 days. So there's a big gap between that 5 to 600 at 6 days, and then all the way up to that. And then anything that's in the two, three, 400, it's gone usually off market. So we don't even see that very often.
Right.
But what I'm trying to tell my sellers who are contingent, where they need the money on the property and they don't want to go through where, doing a bridge loan or anything like that, like this is the opportunity, because as soon as rates tick down, it's going to go bananas again. So
Right.
right now is your opportunity to not only get into the property you want, sell your home for the most amount of money, but also ride that wave when the rates go down just a tad bit. You don't want to be caught on the backside of that. So
Right.
I'm starting to see that across the board. I'm still talking to my people in Southern California. Those properties are still flying off the market no matter what price point. But it seems like the average areas are still allowing contingent sellers, first time home buyers, to be able to get into the market, because we know in 2021 there wasn't a chance they were doing that
Right.
unless they had a buttload of capital to sit on.
Right. It is nice to see that you can do a contingency again. That is nice, and at least then that way you have some breathing rooms for those sellers. And I feel like we're not seeing the offers go crazy high when you get a multiple offer. You're seeing it at a natural little bump up, not this crazy 75,000, 100 or whatever it was, but which makes me feel better because I always hated that process. So um, that makes me feel better. All right. Any other questions for us?
That's all I got right now.
All
I
right.
love what you guys are doing, and the show has been so beneficial. I've loved listening to the past episodes, and I'm excited to keep tuning in for more.
Oh, awesome. And we want to just interview people around the country and get to know their markets and get to know them. And then that way, if people want an agent in the North Georgia or Atlanta area, right? Atlanta, then they could call Robert and they can call you for a loan. So that's what we're really trying to do is come up with referral partners around the country that we can refer business back and forth to each other and help each other, and finding the right agent for people and the right lender is so important. And that's why we're passionate about this. So, Christy, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm close.by.christy, or my phone number is 678 300 6913.
You can find me all over social media. Just hashtag the Acrely Group. You'll find my wife and I all over the place. But phone number 470-272-3338. Can't miss the last name. I think I'm one of two people licensed in the United States with the same last name. So
Can't miss it. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it. And Dave, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
I just call me 972-896-8790.
Awesome. And we're at 214-662-9308. And we appreciate you guys coming on today. And if there's ever anyone you need in the Georgia area, we're going to have them call you and get in touch with both of you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Tim. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Bye.